Next up, we have a fireside chat with Yahoo on the topic of native advertising. Welcome Aubrie, Lamar from iProspect and Leo Polanowski from Yahoo to the stage.
All right, so it's 4 o'clock. Thank you to whoever did the schedule. We're very thankful that we're not the last session, but we are the second to last, so I mean,
that's right.
Second losers.
Where's my beer?
Yeah, I know, right? So Jeremy did a great job of setting up the concept of fireside chat. So I love that I'm on stage because these are my favorite content session of the summit. We basically get to talk to industry experts about things that we are crazy passionate about. So I'm Aubrie Lamar. I'm the National Director of Display. So a lot of people will tell you that they have the best role, but they're lying. I actually do. So I get to oversee the strategy and innovation for display and native. And I get to work with some awesome people and people like Leo to do it. So I'm joined with Leo to talk about native. So let's start off by just talking a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Why not talk about myself? That's fun. So Leo Polanowski, I oversee our emerging markets business at Yahoo. That's basically the GM of Canada, Latin America, US mid-market, our channel partners, PMDs, resellers, SMB, sort of torso and tail. Previously to that, I ran our performance ad sales group, which was really responsible for delivering native into our client base over the last couple years. And before that, I ran client services for the Americas. So had a chance to kind of see how folks were using, native along with other strategies in combination, kind of on a day-to-day basis. And now, obviously, in charge of acquisition of new clients. So how it's sort of being received in market, and what new clients are experiencing when they're coming onto the platform, et cetera. So that's kind of my background. Not much. Over here and there.
No, I love it. So I think one of my favorite things about why you're on the stage with us, because you touch so many different channels. So we'll talk a lot more about that. But the funny thing about native is it's been around for a long time, right? Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily new, but it's evolved so quickly and so fast. So talk to us a little bit about how Yahoo defines native, and if it's different from maybe how IAB does, and then what really inspired Yahoo to be pioneers in the native advertising space.
Sure. So we consider native the same, pretty much. That standard definition of a native ad is something that follows the form and function of the content and the context around it, right? I think the motivating factor, we got into the business in sort of mid 2013 and really ramped up the Gemini native platform in 2014. And it was following trends in consumer behavior, right? So the wave of mobile adoption and mobile usage from consumers, has completely radically changed the landscape of digital advertising, as everyone is aware, if you're not under a rock. And from a publisher perspective, Yahoo, along with I think almost every other major content provider and most of the social platforms and mediums, discovered that using a form factor of a phone, users are a lot more likely to scroll through things, flip. You can, that paradigm is a lot more prevalent, and so most folks flipped over to a stream-based delivery mechanism for content. And when you do that, you obviously then need to figure out, does the old ad system work or not? And the answer was really it didn't, right? Banners just weren't a good fit for that paradigm. And so you kind of had this evolution of a native concept where you put ads in stream that looked and felt and acted much more seamlessly and natural to the environment they were in. So that was the big push for us. The impetus, it really was sort of anticipating the mobile shift. And then that carried over across devices, quite frankly, and then your desktop ended up looking like a stream, et cetera, right? But it was really mobile first that kind of drove it, and that was the reason that I think we've seen the growth. We're up to, I think as an industry, expectations are going to be in the $14 billion range, I think, for the year for 2016, and going to 21-ish in the next 2 years. So it's a pretty massive growth that we're seeing.
So the concept of mobile first is something we've heard a lot about today. Not surprising, right? So that is a major factor in this cross-channel play. And at iProspect, I feel like we are constantly talking about emerging channels, and native is something that whether it's myself or someone on my team or executive leadership, when we go into meetings, we're constantly talking about this. But we pride ourselves on really understanding how things benefit each other cross-channel, and how it is tying into not only the things that we manage, but what our clients do direct on site. So what is Yahoo seeing specifically in how native really plays a vital role in this cross-channel strategy and really where it lives in that holistic approach?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's been an interesting evolution. When native first started, or at least Gemini first started with us, 2 years ago, it was primarily a DR vehicle, and the creative options were limited, right? It was a text-based ad format predominantly, maybe had a little icon on the side. And it was mostly, again, to try and drive incremental clicks that maybe would have gone to a display banner in the past and drive to a direct response. Since, we've seen an evolution of many more options creatively, much richer images, native video, which we'll show an example of later on, app install, social feed content, so branding content, content marketing, right? It's evolved to be a very flexible channel. And so I think that is one of its allures for advertisers. That really does help solve the cross-channel thing, because it fits almost any marketing need that you have. You can find a usage for it. And so we're starting to find it a very strong upper and mid-funnel play, as well as a bottom funnel. And so we're seeing different advertiser types come into the marketplace and use it in different ways. Yep. And I would say, more sophisticated advertisers are starting to really look at it in that full funnel way. And tying everything from a branding play to a sort of a back-end search play and kind of bringing that together. I can give you some other examples, like when we run a native campaign, we've done some A/B studies. It actually drives, within the first week, about a 2x lift to search brand searches. So I know that, iProspect, you have a lot of search clients. It's been an interesting thing, and we've been trying to educate the market a little bit about this, that you can build your own search query volume by running a native campaign, and it actually works. So it's a pretty interesting tool to kind of cross the channels and tie things together. You got to get the attribution and measurement story right, which is not easy, but it is pretty effective.
About that too. Okay, so in theory, right, we're talking about flexible placements. We're talking about taking things that we already have and creating this experience, via mobile or via native. So it sounds easy, but we know it's not always that easy. So when you're talking to clients and agencies about getting into the native space, what are still the key challenges or barriers to entry that you're seeing keep people from just jumping right in?
Yeah, so I will say it is easy, relatively speaking, to get at least your toe in the water and get started. I mean, I won't do it now, but I've done demos like on stage and live in front of an audience where we've picked someone and we've launched a campaign for them in real time, right? Like 10 minutes, you're up and running. I won't do that again, but it worked.
But we could.
You could if you wanted to. So you can get started fairly easily. It only requires a couple elements of creative to get going. But to get really good at it, it does take an investment, right? So I think creative optimization is probably one of the main elements. Yeah. It is not the place where you take a traditional banner ad and slap it into the image and then just run it. You really need to work on tuning. You have a chance to make an emotional connection. It really is a rich media experience now. And if you do it right, you can really increase engagement rates, brand awareness, purchase intent lift. Pretty much any of the branding metrics you care about will follow if you invest the time to kind of do the creative right. So that's one thing. But that does take investment, right? So again, you need to spend some time building assets that actually work for the channel. The second is embracing data, right? So data and data targeting and usage is incredibly important in native, as it is pretty much in every digital medium, but I would say in particular in native, if you do it right, it works really well. So we're starting to see clients use custom segments, right? Custom audiences in combination with what publishers like us provide, right? Where we have 100 billion plus signals across search and mail and content consumption and social across the Yahoo network that you can use for interest targeting, and you can use it for search retargeting. You can layer on kind of a portfolio approach of data usage. So using combination of first party and third party data effectively in kind of a funnel strategy works really well. But again, that takes investment of time, and so that can be a barrier if folks aren't ready to kind of suit up and get on the data train.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So shameless plug for Insight Labs tomorrow. We're actually going to be talking about the ease of launching a native campaign a lot more tomorrow. But it's truly through being able to work with people like you guys to have a technology that makes it so easy, not only to launch, but to optimize to report back, right?
Yeah.
So I think, there are technologies out there that have absolutely broken down some of the walls, but, no doubt that there's still internal barriers that, we need to overcome on, maybe on the brand side.
Yeah,
right?
I would say if you're already using and you've built out a DMP strategy, it should be very simple, relatively speaking, to bring that in and use those data segments and targeting approaches. If you don't have a DMP strategy yet, that's okay. You can leverage, again, the publisher's first-party data, which is very rich, right, to kind of bring that to bear. And if you have your own, as a brand, your own data set, you can really do a custom audience. You can bring that in directly. You can import it into this, into Gemini and use it, or do the similar on Facebook.
Absolutely, cannot agree more with that. So we've talked about, launching a campaign is relatively easy. We've talked about, what are the key benefits. So what are the specific, tactics maybe that you've seen work best in this space? Obviously leveraging data, but are there other, key wins that you're saying, these are the tactics, ad formats, et cetera, that we really need to be going
yeah, so I think it matters, and we can kind of advance. I think there's some we can show some of these examples. If you want to be able to take advantage at scale, you want to have a broad set of creatives in there, right? And take advantage of all the forms that are available. So you can do video, as we're showing here. This is a Jeep ad that ran, that was very effective, very engaging. They saw basically 2x the completion rates, running this than in any other channel, including, their sort of traditional pre-roll video. And the cost per view was, I think, half. Right, so a pretty effective ad format. Sight, sound, motion, again, emotional content, connection, and brand affinity. You kind of get all of that. App install, if you have any apps, which a lot of people do these days, is another one. So I think we show this on the next one. Poshmark did which is obviously a retail brand app. So the thing is, when you think about app install, most of the market is gaming, and that's where people's mind tend to go. It's like, oh, it's about gaming, and by the way, that is absolutely valid and a large segment, but we are starting to see direct brands doing app install very successfully, and we are evolving the platform to look at not just did they download the app, but what are the post install actions and the sort of cost per purchase and affinity and retention, and those metrics are actually bearing out very well. And Poshmark has kind of gone nuts with us and some other channel partners to really get their app out there, and it's driving a ton of sales and volume. So, Uber's another. There's quite a few examples of folks that are starting to really embrace the full app install portfolio. Yes, no?
We're all still alive. So I love what you just said. You said, taking the analytics, tying it back. We've talked about DMP, and we've already kind of touched on cross-channel, but we have these learnings from our native campaign. How easy is it to port those into our search and display campaigns? I mean, obviously, I know that, but I'd love to hear from you. Yahoo, you guys are sitting on a treasure trove of data and information across various channels. So what does that look like for our advertisers?
So it's not as easy as it should be yet, be quite candid. We are working on it. I think everybody's working on it. I think cross-device and offline measurement is going to be probably the most important thing that happens this year in the space, and getting that right. We've made some definite strides. Again, if you are in Gemini and you're doing a search campaign and you want to do native, you can use the exact same targeting segments. We're actually even doing some things where you can essentially light up your existing search campaign and turn it into a native campaign at basically a keyword level search retargeting tactic with no incremental work. Like, that's actually in pilot right now. And I would encourage most folks with a search campaign to give that a shot. I think that's a good way to kind of quickly bridge it and take the data and the usage, and if you're bidding at a keyword level in search and it's performing, we're going to find essentially a lookalike audience based upon their prior search history. It could be within the minute or within 7 days. You have some flexibility over that sort of that window, but you can find those people that have expressed an intent signal elsewhere outside of just the SERP. So we're starting to do that and pull together search and native and other display audience, even video now with the native video. We're starting to build out things like end cards that take action, right? So after you watch the view, instead of just being like replay, right, you could fill out a form, you could provide an email address, you could drive to a search result, et cetera. So we're getting there. We're getting there, and there'll be more to come, I think, in this year, it's probably one of the areas of biggest investment for us.
Awesome,
and
yeah.
others.
And I think we're definitely seeing a lot of that progress, and all of that being under the Gemini platform is awesome. So other than testing, taking some of those Gemini learnings and expanding them to native, what are other important next steps or even recommendations that you have for our audience today of what it takes to essentially get started outside of what you've already listed?
So definitely embrace data. I would say the creative optimizations are critical. It's not a set and forget it marketplace. The other area that folks are doing, again, it depends on the tactic and what your KPI is and what your goal is. But if you are a performance-based advertiser, we have basically a CPA targeted pricing option. We call it OCPC. It's a terrible name, but essentially what it means is that you're setting a price target for a conversion. You drop a pixel right on the site, and then we look for kind of leveraging, like you said, that sort of big data set that we sit on. We try to find the right auctions for you to participate in on the native side that will actually drive to your CPA and conversion target. We've probably seen about 30 to 40% of the DR-based spend right now is running through that sort of OCPC, CPA-based approach, and I expect that to ramp up to north of 50% probably within the next quarter or so. It's just very efficient. So that's another thing I would do. It's pretty simple and straightforward. You got to drop the dot pixel and then set a CPA target and kind of let it do its thing. So that's another area I think that is a good tactic that works. Again, we're here to help. Like I would show you, like we literally have internally a native success guide our optimization team works. It's like a book, right? Like it's like 80 pages long at this point.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
I haven't read the whole thing, but I've seen it. I think the other thing that you and I were talking about was, obviously we talk a lot about, mobile, and it's been the year of mobile for like 100 years. But the idea of, knowing that content is consumed at such a high rate on mobile, of making sure that your mobile conversion experience is up to par. Right?
Absolutely.
So like if you're expecting them to complete an action, making sure they're not filling out 100 lines, right?
Yes, super critical, right? Again, going back to the beginning, we talked about, why native and why did we and others kind of go down that path. It's that fragmented consumer experience. Folks aren't on a single device. I mean, go ahead, raise your hand if you've checked your phone since this has started, when you were supposed to be paying attention to this screen, right? Like everybody, right? Everybody. Go ahead, I'm not offended. I'd check my own phone right now if you aren't looking at me. Right, so this is just the way the world is, right? These are what users do. This is what how consumers consume content these days. But that also means you don't have a totally captive audience anymore. So you must build something that is incredibly simple and streamlined and engaging very quickly within the first microsecond of someone landing on that site. So if you have not built out not just mobile friendly, but like mobile specific workflows and landing page post-click experiences, you are way behind. And we are starting to see some clients do that really, really well and completely re-engineer essentially those workflows and think about different metrics. It's not necessarily did they go the whole way through the mortgage app now on the phone, right? It's did they find data and rates, and is that a conversion, right? And what is that worth? And then are they going to complete later on a different device, and can you tie that attribution back? But optimizing and building mobile-friendly pages is a good place to start, but it really should be mobile-specific paths. You should run a mobile, we have an option, you can run a mobile-only campaign. We recommend every advertiser, if you're running a cross-screen device campaign as your primary, great. You should also have a coupled mobile-only campaign to really funnel and channel traffic specifically into the experience that you've built for that. There are some tech out there too that can help. Like we've done a few partnerships and pilots where we can essentially create very easy 3, 4, 5 screen interaction models that on a mobile experience, and you can use that as a way to basically test too. Instead of having to code an entire new mobile landing page experience, which is a time investment, an engineering investment, you could put one of these together in in an hour, right, and test it and see how it works, and then swap out different essentially slides, if you will. And we're starting to see like travel bureaus do that very effectively to understand how they want to divert traffic to different offers and season and things like that. So yeah, I think mobile optimization isn't nice to have anymore. I mean, it's a absolute baseline requirement.
Yep, I think we're seeing that across the board. So we want to open it up to questions before we continue. So I don't know if anyone submitted any via the app or if you want to raise our hand, but.
We've got some questions on the app.
Nice.
How does native performance differ between devices, and which ad formats work best on which device?
There it is.
It does depend on your objective. For again, most of your traditional DR advertisers, PC absolutely still performs the best from a conversion basis. I think that is both because of what I just mentioned, the fact that you have 10, 15 years of history on a PC and in optimizing that post-click experience, and you probably, depending on the advertiser, have 6 months to a year and a half experience on optimizing your mobile conversion path. Those are coming closer to parity over time. There's still probably about a 50% gap, I would say, in effective conversion rate for DR. On the flip side, if you are a branding advertiser and you're looking to reach an audience in something that's an effective complement or even addition to a TV buy, for example, you can hit a TRP, very effective cost per point, using native advertising on mobile, where you don't necessarily care what device the person is on to see your message, right? And in fact, most people are more likely, we've seen, to finish and complete a view on a video ad on a mobile device than they are on a PC, right? And so if your branding objective is that, mobile and video go together really, really well. App install, again, obviously, it's kind of self-evident, but app install works on mobile. It doesn't work on desktop because you're not installing an app typically on a desktop. But that's a really effective channel, obviously, for app install investments. So good question, but it really depends on your objective, and but they all complement each other, back to the cross-channel thing. Even if you're looking at pure DR desktop conversions, if you're using mobile as a way to increase that mid-funnel and kind of stuff leads into the funnel that are going to convert downstream on desktop, and you get the attribution model right, you'll be a lot more effective.
I love that.
Next question, God.
Oh, we got
Okay, well, I'm not God, but I have a question.
Okay.
So, Leo, you mentioned earlier that you can get started in 10 minutes. You don't really have to have a lot of content available at the moment, but that ideal case, you do create content. What's that balance? What's that mix? Like, what sort of fatigue do we have to worry
Yeah.
about? Like, what's your general recommendation?
Yeah, so good question. Where are you? Okay, you're in the back. Got it, perfect. All right, so we have about it depends on how big you go, right, and how many, how wide you're trying to cast your net, and if you're doing, very specific geo-targeting, or you're very content-specific or interest-specific, you don't hit that fatigue as much. If you're going a very broad-based sort of awareness campaign and you're going to be running on, Yahoo homepage and syndication at, full force, you're probably going to get ad fatigue within 3 or 4 days. We recommend, rotating creative in that time frame. If you're a little more targeted and niche, you can probably get away with it for 2 weeks without refreshing either image or ad copy to something that's a little more interesting and new. I would also say we recommend you start with about a dozen variations of copy in various combinations, and you can go from there. I mean, I have some content marketing advertisers that have hundreds of campaigns with thousands of pieces of creative that are more on the sort of publisher side, where they just want to drive a ton of awareness and incremental views back and traffic back to their site. But that's about what I would say as a rule of thumb. Refresh that, and again, it doesn't have to be a massive brand new campaign where you're completely reinventing the intent. It's can be as simple as just sort of rewording and rephrasing the call to action slightly differently, right, from week to week. So it's tweaks on top of a core campaign intent versus kind of reinventing the wheel, each time.
I think we're seeing that for a lot of the campaigns that we're running right now, is like the data tells us the story fast. I mean,
you'll see CTRs drop. You'll know engagement rates are down.
I mean, instantly
Pretty
in a day, right? So I mean, we'll launch with 30 ad variations, and in 3 days have 6, and we'll add 10 more the next day. So I mean, it's quick, but it's not as daunting as it sounds, because you're taking 4 headlines, 3 thumbnails, combining it, and instantly getting 12 variations.
Yeah, and experimentation does pay off.
Sure.
Like, you can have a wide variability. I've seen what would, to the naked eye, appear very similar creatives. One have a 2% click-through rate and one have a 0.6% click-through rate. That makes a little sense. But
well, not when you're
it's a little,
writing
but
it.
like trying to find it is the right combination. Is
Yeah.
right. Like, you know, if I was going to put you on an ad, like how close do I zoom in on your face to like put you right in the image is really matters, right?
Yeah.
And sort of if you're doing a product type push, you know, using sort of native as product ads type of format. Showing the product image or not, or how much white space, don't clutter it. I mean, there's a lot of sort of best practices, but it does take some experimentation. But like you said, the good news is it's a quick feedback signal. It's not like a lot of traditional sort of display media where you're going to run a campaign for 6-week flight, and then at the end you might get some brand lift metrics 3 weeks after that, and then by that time you have to reinvent, right? I mean, it's a fast twitch environment. You'll know pretty quickly if that ad is, you know, singing or not.
I think you're right. I think earlier in a session someone asked a question about, you know, when do you let the data make the decision versus kind of like your gut? And it is funny, you know, time and time again, the data is just proving to be right. Of like, I would say this headline doesn't really make a lot of sense with this, you know, thumbnail image, for instance, and sure enough, it's the top performing and most engaged. It's just crazy. But
that's why we also recommend you can load them into a campaign. It's going to get tactical, but you could load in a bunch of different combinations in creative, and basically we're going to do we're going to run traffic against to kind of get an evaluation, right, in a pilot mode behind the scenes, and then whichever one actually does have the highest engagement rate, we're going to start funneling traffic to that and serve it. Like that's kind of how the algorithm works in the back end. So you can kind of let the algo do some of the heavy lifting, and you can just put in a bunch of different combinations, and it'll kind of tell you which one is working.
Cool.
So we've got a lot of questions flowing through.
Perfect.
And we're running low on time, but here's another one.
Rapid fire.
Native is already getting a bad reputation as clickbait. How is that being addressed to ensure native doesn't become the next pop-up?
Yeah, great question, actually. It's something we think about a lot. We do. So the balance of ad policy and editorial, they are my friends. I'm on the sales side, but ad policy and editorial are my friends. They are continually monitoring ad feedback, right? So if you go on Yahoo and you look at our ad, it is obvious that it is an ad. It does say sponsored. It is a different color. Like, we do not try to trick the user. By the way, trying to trick the user doesn't do anything for you, because what you're going to find out is on the back end, if it's a unintentional click, it's not going to convert. And if most of the marketplace is driven on a CPA basis, you're just shooting yourself in the foot, right? So as a publisher and an ad platform, it's not in our interest to allow clickbait. It does happen, but we also have a direct consumer channel feedback. You can go in and basically flag it right on the page. If you see an ad, don't like it, don't like it. And we actually incorporate that consumer ad feedback into basically the stack ranking algorithm of what wins an auction and serves. So that's one way that we're trying to attack it, along with the manual editorial review of every piece of creative goes through editorial review, and we look at, is this misleading? Is this, do they say what they mean? Is it, when you go to the landing page, is that actually there, right?
Are we able to implement impression tracking with native so that we can bring it into an attribution solution to leverage value beyond the click?
100% yes. View through attribution is part of it. You can drop, again, it's, our pixeling solution is our dot pixel. Once you implement that, it works for both click-through and view-through attribution. You can tie it in to other campaigns. You can, see how the native campaign is influencing a front page buy or a search campaign. And even, as I mentioned, we're getting into the field of, offline sales lift. And whether the view of the ad, not the click, but the view of the ad is driving offline, like in-store sales. So we're starting to see a lot of that.
We've got time for one more question. How do you brief your creative team for content development that actually feels native?
How do we brief them? So we hire copywriters, basically. In our ad creative, we call them creative services team. There's probably about 120, 140 of them in the US, and a couple, probably about the same amount in other global markets. And we've since launched a thing called Yahoo Storytellers, which is a team that's working with our editorial teams, the Katie Couric's type of stuff at Yahoo, to actually have them help kind of co-develop content for brands, and then bring that through native channels for distribution. So we help with the development through Yahoo Storytellers and come up with what should be truly an organic, informational type of content, and then letting brand advertisers have a voice in that with some folks that their day jobs are to write organic, like compelling content and stories for users. So that's one way that we're, or two ways really, that we're helping.
Awesome. So in 30 seconds or less, what can we expect from Gemini or Yahoo as far as native is concerned over the next 6 months? And if you want to share anything top secret, I mean, we do have time.
Yeah. So I kind of mentioned a couple of them. I think, you know, we're focused on making mobile work better. It works decently now, so that takes a whole realm of different avenues. Again, there's post-click experience and optimization we're working on. The search to native connection is one big one. We're going to continue to invest in video and brand opportunities in native. We're just seeing a lot of interest and work there. Offline sales lift and measurement, and making that not such a hurdle to do, and make it easier and seamless, and be able to just kind of bring that in to the campaign through various partners, Nielsen, Comscore, Argus, Vis-a-View, like tons of different measurement solutions. I think those are probably the biggest area of investments and what you can expect, and increased supply, like we are continuing to try and drive. We had basically a 2x growth in supply this last year. We want to have the same if possible this year. So bring a varied set of publishers, not just Yahoo, but other syndication partners into the network and into the mix, so that you have the broadest reach as possible.
Cool. Well, we're excited about native.
Yeah,
and thanks for everything you're doing. But thanks for joining.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.